This video reflects the academic staff and students' experience of a virtual and physical field trip to Vietnam. The project is an ongoing collaboration between the University of Westminster and Hanoi University. The project is divided into two parts: an organized virtual trip for 10 weeks, covering a brief history of economics, society, culture, development, geography, and politics of Vietnam. We examine different questions. For example, how has Vietnamese successfully developed since 1980s? What role has the state played? What has been the contribution of international organizations such as the UN, UNESCO, or NGOs in Vietnam? The virtual trip covers online lectures, workshops, recorded videos from UNESCO, UN, NGOs, Vietnamese Women's Museum, Ha Lo Prison, and interviews with academics from Hanoi University. The second part of the project is an actual visit to the country for 9 days to put into practice what the students learned during their virtual field trip. We visit different institutions and organizations, as well as having several lectures at the university.
I had the pleasure to join the virtual trip to Vietnam this year, which I'm so glad I did, because my perception and knowledge about this country was very limited before. Then the experiences of the students from the University of Hanoi and the academics helped me understand the culture, the society, and the history from this amazing country. And also I had a great opportunity to work with many students from the university with different backgrounds and different courses, which is always a great baggage of knowledge. I'm so glad I did, and I invite everyone to do the same because it's an amazing experience. So thank you.
It was based on the knowledge of my research, in the module I took last semester. However, it is interesting and enlightening to hear from the point of view of Vietnamese academics and students who were gracious enough to join us in the program. I learned a lot more as a result of the sort of information they shared, and I would definitely join the program if the opportunity arises again in the future. And also I would strongly recommend and encourage students to participate in the program. And the beauty of it is that it's open to all students, irrespective of what you're studying. And
when I was offered to join a Vietnam project, I did not really know what to expect at all. I only very briefly knew that it would include some blogs and a few meetings. But now, I'm very glad I joined. The project was delivered through a series of interactive sessions, such as students sharing and note-taking, or writing and reviewing blogs. So that without even realizing, participants have instantly boosted their confidence at speaking publicly, their writing speed, or their perception of the world. As the famous saying says, that every day is a school day, so as in this case, it may be applied ditto. So if I could give a bit of advice to those who are watching at the moment, do not hesitate to join this incredible hybrid project. Okay, the actual physical trip to Vietnam is only a cherry on tart. However, the knowledge and the skills you will gain in as short as a 2-month period are definitely worth their weight in gold, and certainly will serve to your benefit in the future, wherever you go, whoever you decide to be. So go for it.
My perception of Vietnam before I started on this whole virtual field trip was it was sort of like very surface level and very basic, mainly drawing from sort of like media and TV shows, and most of my knowledge was sort of limited to things like the Vietnam War. that sort of thing, and how they were communist, and along with these sort of like preconceptions that came with those sort of labels. But now I have a much more diverse and I would say accurate and fair view of the country and its people and how its government works, along with its sort of like dismissed some of the stigmas I may have had originally about it. I feel like one of the things that really helped, so to say, broaden my horizons was the inclusion of students and Vietnamese teachers from Hanoi University, as it's a very different experience on reading something in, like, for example, like a blog post or seeing a video about it, compared to sort of like actually talking to people who live there, experience it, and most of the time you find that it's a lot more easy to understand things as well when there's actually someone who sort of like abides by that system of governance. For example, they find it's a lot easier for them to actually explain how it works.
My perception of Vietnam was like, it's just another country, you know. I didn't really know that much about it. I like seen something on TV like when I was younger in a cartoon about the Vietnamese War, and that's really all I knew about it, because it was like just another country to me, like another third world country. And then I joined this tour in uni, and it really opened my eyes because we got to watch videos every single week about different topics in Vietnam, and I felt more connected to Vietnam as like an African person. But you know, coming from another considered third world country, you know, there are different things that were similar to my country, and getting to talk to Vietnamese students as well, getting to hear firsthand how it feels like to live in their country and how it actually is. And it's not what you think it is on TV or anything. It's like they're living regular lives just like you and me. So I felt connected in that way, and it was really nice to like exchange cultures and talk about different topics, deep topics like gender and politics. And yeah, I would definitely recommend this for anyone that would want to join, that wants to learn about other cultures as well, because it is a really good learning experience, and it is a really nice thing to like talk about with other people.
Before joining the virtual field trip, I had really no knowledge or any of Vietnam. I had an idea that it was within Asia towards the southeast, but I didn't know specifically where. But since joining the virtual field trip, I've learned so much more about the history, the geography, how the politics work in the country and political history, and how the UN has helped with stuff and the UNESCO sites, and all of this together has given me a much greater understanding of the country.
I just love the opportunity to be able to learn directly from them, just instead of just reading online and reading random articles. I feel like the personal experience is completely different than what we could have done if just by doing a search.
What I found most fascinating and pleasantly surprising was the country's high levels of involvement in various branches of the United Nations. Additionally, I think that the opportunities that Vietnamese students are presented with in relation to working with United Nations is absolutely amazing, and I had no idea about it beforehand. So what I believe enriched my experience the most throughout this entire project was the ability to discuss content and ask questions to Vietnamese students as well as Vietnamese academics. Besides the content that we have learnt during lectures, we were able to talk to them about cultural aspects of Vietnam, such as food, holidays and myths, which was really interesting within itself, as Vietnam has an amazingly rich culture and history. So additionally to the information and the ability to enrich ourselves in that way, the students were able to learn new skills and develop the existing ones through note-taking, chairing meetings, writing and reviewing blogs, which will definitely be helpful and transferable into the workplace.
Actually, having an in-depth understanding of Vietnam about its economic transition, its political system, gave me actually a lot of knowledge also about the Southeast and East Asian countries in general, something that I didn't have and that will actually be very positive for my future studies, because actually having a broad knowledge is very useful. For example, Vietnam is a communist country, which is also the case for many East and Southeast Asian countries, which actually can impact the economic growth of a country. That's also very different from the system that we have in Western countries. So I found it very useful to have a different perspective, something that I didn't know. And also having actually the opportunity to exchange with other students and also to have the Zoom call with Vietnamese students from another part of the world was very actually wealthy for me.
My perception of Vietnam before the project was that I didn't really know a lot about Vietnam. We learned about the Vietnamese-American War in high school, but I didn't really know anything about the culture before the project, I guess. Just other than some basic knowledge about its history. I didn't really perceive anything about it, to be honest. But now, you know, I mean, after... the next question is, what is it now? Now, I guess my perception is that of, like, Vietnam becoming this increasingly powerful kind of player in world economics and commerce, and, you know, you have such a wide and varied history, and it's so sad that it's kind of all been, most people only know of, like, this one event in history, which is, like, this terrible thing that happened to people, and we aren't teaching people anything else. We aren't teaching people about, you know, such interesting parts of, you know, Vietnamese culture here, which I think is really terrible. But next question is, how do I feel about involving Vietnamese academics and students in the project? Yeah, I mean, I feel it's great. You know, it's wonderful having this kind of connection with the students and academics in Hanoi.
I was very, very interested and sometimes even mind blown when I was talking to the Vietnamese students and how they would explain their perspective on either their relation to their neighboring countries like China or Cambodia, and why are these relations like this, what is the history, and even like these smaller events which I might have previously glossed over as less important if I would read them online. When you hear from their shared experiences or what they have thought about or heard about from their relatives or something, you can really see how many of them are extremely a lot more important than they previously were, at least how I previously thought of them. And the other aspect about the trip, which I found very important, is that even though there were some like lectures and like specific events which are carried around being educational, I think the biggest revelations or information I gained was mainly due either exploration or just walking through the streets of either Hanoi or any other place we were, because that allowed us to get so much more of real life face value experiences about all the things any one of us were interested in, that I think any other of the students who went there could completely agree that it was so valuable to just be there and see everything with your own eyes and formulate your own opinions.
The traffic was really chaotic, but at the same time it was as if everything was in place. We were just told to go across the street and the cars and the scooters will move around us, which seemed really absurd at that time. The students were amazing. They were super welcoming.
One of the things I liked the most about this project was just being able to talk to local people, and I really appreciate that you guys were able to share with us your personal experience and personal notes and historical facts.
And I've also been able to see the difference between a developing country and a developed country. So Vietnam, I've seen how and their plans to progress. I've seen the potential the country also has to progress. And I've also seen the students and how they live their way of life compared to how we live.
We were able to see how life functions completely differently, even when it comes to traffic, the food. I know a lot of us enjoyed the food out there a lot, especially the street food. being able to travel to Vietnam has made me see how much of a development success story it has been. From the lectures we received at Hanoi University, we were able to see the shifts from the 1986 reforms up until now, which still till this day, the economic growth has been rapid and massive.
I had never visited that part of the world before, so I didn't really want to think too much before going there. And yeah, I'm glad that I didn't, because I went there and everything I saw was new. And it was amazing. Like, how the society functions there, how the traffic is the craziest and most chaotic I have ever seen, but the security guards are the strictest I have ever seen. The people are the most helpful, the friendliest, and also the most reserved. The fruit are the best like I had ever had, and also I ate some like chicken legs and chicken brains. And it is so amazing, like when I walked around Vietnam, I could really feel the history of the country. Like, I don't know, it's difficult to explain, but when I was there, I just like felt it from the, I don't know, even from the architecture, how the old Vietnamese architecture is right next to some European architecture and some very modern buildings, and this all somehow like comes together and people are going about their lives and doing their stuff, and it works, but it works so differently to any society I had been in before.
The field trip to Vietnam was easily one of the most unique and exciting experiences I've had as a member of DEN and as a student at Westminster. Before going, we had done just over 10 weeks of virtual field trips, where each week we had a focus on a different aspect of Vietnamese culture or society or politics. And while this definitely helped me gain a better understanding, it could not compare to actually being there for myself and being able to meet and talk to local people and students as well as lecturers from the Hanoi University. As a sort of politics and IR student, I'd always had an interest in the Southeast Asian region, as you know, it's currently one of the major flashpoints, if you will, in international relations. But it is one thing to understand Vietnamese national politics in theory, and it's another to actually talk to people that live there and see how they feel and how they experience local and national politics. Just going to visit the Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum was in itself a unique experience, and it really helps you appreciate just the different approach and sort of mindset that these cultures all have to politics. Moving on from politics though, areas that I didn't think would interest me nearly as much, such as geography, natural environment, and even social life and sort of social culture to some aspect, also really fascinated me. I think this trip gave me the opportunity to dive headfirst into local traditions and customs, and through having the local Vietnamese students as our guides, I think that we were able to really enrich ourselves, learn and understand so much more about the environment we were in. What I can certainly say is that given the chance, I would definitely do this again, and I think this will prove invaluable in helping me understand not only Vietnamese culture, but also my course in general and possible future careers I'd like to pursue in international relations.
It was such an amazing experience. Like, I will always remember Vietnam as a country that gives you positive vibes.
The most significant aspects was definitely meeting the students and being able to interact with them. That the students were so friendly, they were so nice, they brought us, they were so also open to like help us, being our translators, giving us advice on so many things, and they were so helpful.
This field trip to Vietnam has been one of the most amazing trips that I have been on, and I have the most amazing memories from it. I have never visited Southeast Asia before, and I can say that I would love to go again. Vietnam was an incredible experience, and I saw so much more than I expected. Hanoi is so rich in its history, its culture, and its architecture, and it was so nice to walk the streets of Hanoi and see different things.
Being able to see things such as the organised chaos of the roads, you don't get that sense from the virtual field trip, but being there, being able to see, smell, and feel what's going on around you, and see how the economic development of Doi Moi policy has shaped modern Vietnam, and how, in around 3 to 4 decades, they've really rapidly emerged into a country which is aiming to become a high-income country by the 2040s, which is quite outstanding to think about where they've come from since the 1980s and the 2000s.
I was able to discover a lot of new things, cultural aspects, historical aspects, and it was very intriguing, especially now, to understand the role of Vietnam in the international economy and the international development. So one thing that literally made the experience stand up, in my opinion, was the fact that we collaborated with Vietnamese academics and students in the project. And it was absolutely, it is something very valuable. You have a personal insight about the things that you're studying.
Hi everyone, my name is Thai. I'm one of the students during the Vietnamese field trip. On top of everything, I would like to show my appreciation to the University of Westminster, to Dr. Farhan, the organizer of the field trip, and to all the students who have participated in the field trip. So I would say that I was so lucky so as to have a chance to participate in the trip with the students. It was a big opportunity for me to enhance my life skills, as I have made new friends and I have a chance to study my own history with them.
I have to say that I'm so honored to be a part of this trip. We haven't met each other online due to the pandemic, but I can feel the enthusiasm from the professor and the friends. It's not only allowed me to meet students apart, but also give me to have a deeper understanding of my home country, social, economic, and history. It is a great idea to share with your international friends.
And we also have a lot of interesting experience together. We have some field trip to UN Center, the Lum Interest Village, and Temple of Literatures, and so on. And another thing is that I'm so glad when some of you guys said that you love Vietnamese traditional food, you love food. Yeah, it's really a great time for us.
It's a great time for me to share my knowledge as well as experience with new friends. I highly appreciate the contribution of the University of Westminster students in their understanding of Vietnam in many aspects. I have become more confident and learned a lot of valuable things after some conversation with students from University of Westminster. I hope that I can have the chance to join this program next year.
Earlier this year, amid the worldwide travel restrictions, we had successfully organized a virtual field trip for both the students at Westminster and Hanoi. During this virtual field trip, we held a series of online meetings and lectures where we introduced Westminster students to the re-emergence of Vietnam after Doi Moi, and we also informed them of the current state of Vietnamese societies, economies, and politics. This August, after a few years of hiatus, we were finally able to welcome Westminster students to Hanoi again. And in conversation with Vietnamese students, academics, and also visiting many cultural landmarks in Vietnam, I can see the fascination in the eyes of Westminster students, that they were able to see what they have learned in their previous lectures vividly unfolded before their own eyes. To their parents' generation, Vietnam existed as an elusive image, but has now re-emerged very rapidly out of the shadow of the Cold War. This year has been a success in our collaboration between Hanoi, Westminster, and them. I hope to welcome the next generations of Westminster students and young scholars to Hanoi again.
If you want to know about the world, learn about the world, and create your own knowledge about the world, it's important that you experience that part of the world. And this is why at School of Social Sciences and University of Westminster, we encourage students to have opportunity to travel overseas. So I'm glad that the Vietnam trip went well. As a school, we also sponsor trips to Berlin, to Turkey, to various other parts of the world. And it's very important that we continue to provide these opportunities to all the students. So welcome to university and keep traveling and keep knowing about the world. Thank you.